They put the statue on the other dog. In New York, there is bronze. In the winter of 1925, there was a wooden box that had to move when the ice had already closed the usual roads. The newspapers printed one name. The longest, coldest legs of the run belonged to another. This is not a lawsuit against a statue. Balto ran the last street. Children needed a face they could hold. The law we keep is narrower. The sculptor was handed the arrival. The sound was handed to Togo. Nome, Alaska, sat at the edge of the map with diphtheria in the town. The doctor had seen the signs. Serum existed farther south. The problem was not science. The problem was miles and weather. The bearing was ice. The year was too early to trust a plane in that dark. What could move was a relay of mushers and dogs on a trail that later people would dress up as legend, and that was, at the time, only work. A town in winter is a closed room. Mail stops. Ships stop. Children share air. Diphtheria does not care about bronze. It cares about a throat and a delay. The box that left Nenana was small enough to hold in 2 hands and heavy enough to kill a town if it stopped. We will not invent every mile. The record keeps ugly specifics. About 20 teams, a payload wrapped against freeze, temperatures that make a trail disappear while you stand on it, handoffs in wind so hard a man can lose the box and not see it at his feet, a crossing on Norton Sound where the ice does not forgive a wrong line.
The Serum.
Here is the shape the statue cannot hold.
Still intact.
Seppala did not wait in Nome for a parade. He went out from the sick town to meet the box. He ran east into whether other men were already dying in, took the payload from a relay that had already spent itself, and turned around. The longest work is a turn. You go out, you take the weight, you recross the same ice with the thing that must not stop. Leonhard Seppala did not take a postcard dog. He took Togo, small for the work, older than the legend likes. A Siberian who had spent years learning bad ice. When Seppala left Nome into the dark, he did not take the famous one. He took the one who knew the coast. Togo had not been an easy story at the start. The telling that survives is of a pup too much trouble, too much teeth, not the shape people wanted on a lead. He chewed, he bolted, he did not pose. Seppala kept him anyway. That is not a children's moral, it is a working man's bet. You do not put an untested chest on the worst ice. You put the animal that has already lied to the ice and lived. By the year of the box, he was not a young lead. 12 years is old in traces. The record does not make him a miracle pup. It makes him a specialist. Bad ice, coast wind, a body that already knew how far a shortcut can punish you. The relay was not one hero, it was a chain. Each team ran a piece and fell over. What the record keeps for Seppala and Togo is the longest stretch, including that sound crossing. Later writers give numbers that do not all agree. 260 miles, 264. We will not pick a digit to sound like we held the tape. We will keep the shape. Farther than the last leg, colder than the crowd. A lead dog choosing the next foot when a man cannot see the next foot. Norton Sound is not a road. It is a shortcut that can open under you. The choice was time against ice. Seppala took the ice. The stories that stay with drivers are not pretty. A team on a flow. A lead that has to know which white is land. Wind that erases scent and track in the same minute. If Togo had chosen wrong, the box would have gone into black water, and the town would have waited for a box that never came. That is the work the statue does not show. On the ice there is no plaque. There is a harness that cuts. There is a team that stalls. There is a lead that pulls when pulling is the only language left. There is a musher on the runners with his head down because looking up is how you lose the line. There is a night camp where dogs curl into their own breath. There is a morning that is not a morning, only a paler dark. There is a handoff to the next man, and then the next, until the last street is someone else's job. After the sound, the chain still had beads left. A tired man, a fresh team, a place on the map called Bluff. We will not pretend we stood in each cabin. We will keep the law of a relay. The longest dog does not get to finish. The finishing dog does not get the sound. If you film only one of those jobs, you will lie, even if every fact you speak is true. The last night belongs to another driver and another lead, and we will give them their street without giving them the whole winter. Carson ran into a whiteout. Accounts say the sled went over and the box went into snow. He found it with his hands. That is how close a town comes to dying after the hard miles are already done. Balto brought him through the last drift. That happened. It is true. It is also not the sound. When the last team came into Nome, the city needed a face. Gunnar Carson drove that last relay. Balto was on the lead. The medicine arrived. Some of it had frozen. It was still used. The outbreak broke. The country wanted a parade. New York put up bronze in Central Park the same year. Balto's name went on the plaque. Togo's did not. Photographers wanted the dog who arrived. They did not want the dog who had already gone home into the weather. Seppala said, then and later, that the credit had gone to the wrong dog. He was not asking the city to melt the bronze. He was asking the story to remember the sound. A relay succeeds because no single team sees the whole trail. A statue succeeds because a crowd can stand in front of one animal. Those two successes are not the same job. Balto later lived a life that was also not a cartoon. Exhibition, a bad chapter, a rescue to Cleveland. That is his film if you want it. This one stays with the lead who was not invited to the park. Togo lived out. He was not a young dog when he ran. He died in 1929. A later memorial caught up quietly. His mounted hide sat in Alaska. Bones went to a museum that treats him as a specimen and as a name. People still argue in comments as if bronze were a court. It is not. Bronze is a city deciding what it can explain in one afternoon. Years after, other people would run a race on related trail and call it sport. That race is not this box. This box was a winter that had already closed. This box was 20 teams and one old lead and a sculptor who was handed the last street. We do not need to hate Balto to tell this. Hate is a recap factory emotion. What we need is a map. Ninana to Nome. Teams like beads. The longest bead is not the last bead. If you only film the last bead, you will get a statue. If you film the sound, you will get a dog whose name arrived late and then stayed. One last look is not the park statue. It is a dark dog in harness on grey ice, still choosing the next foot. If you only know the cartoon, you know an arrival. If you know the run, you know a box, a coast, an old lead, and a town that lived because a relay did not stop. They put the statue on the other dog. He ran farther than the famous one. The ice does not read newspapers. The ice only keeps the team that chose the line. The town lived. The bronze chose a street. The sound kept the other name.